A People Power Voting Session with a List of Ideas to Improve the World. Chapter 1. A People Power Voting Session. How a People Power Voting Session would work. Someone like the Prime Minister, President, or a professional TV host will go on TV and say we got a new issue or several issues to vote on. He will read them off and say you get 7 days to go on peoplepower.gov to vote on them. He or she might demonstrate by showing the issues on a big screen in the studio as he/she reads them off. A citizen would log into his or her country's People Power Program/PPP website like peoplepower.gov, peoplepower.canada.ca, peoplepower.pl, peoplepower.in, peoplepower.gov.uk. He or she would type in their national ID number in one block, their postal code in another. This will be their password. After they are verified, they would be directed to a website page with the questions on it. They would click their votes for each question with their mouse. At the end, when they're satisfied with all their picks, they press Send my vote. They get a message thanking them, saying their vote has been registered. The people would vote for 7 days. When the polls close, the results will go public almost immediately. It only takes a computer a few seconds to calculate the votes. The president or a professional host will announce the results on TV. Whatever choice most people vote for in any bill is now passed by the People Power Program. It then goes to the president, who has the power to reverse what the People Power Program voted in, but then he has to defend himself to the country through the media. Congress or the Federal Ombudsman Agency will vote on the results too. Journalists and media networks can analyze the ideas before, during and after the voting session. This will give them material for airtime. There will be no official polling during the vote saying what the percentage of votes are so far, but journalists can do their own polls. Chapter 2. A list of issues for the people to vote on. Military issues. Should we create a constitutional amendment or simply a formal statement defining us as a peaceful nation who will not spend money on military forces or fight in foreign wars? We will not fight in the wars of our supposed allies. We will not have any other nations back when it comes to war. We will only fight if we are invaded by another nation. Yes. No. What should we do with the military budget? Increase it by 10%. Keep it the same. Reduce it by 25%. Reduce it by 50%. Reduce it by 75%. Reduce it by 90%. Get rid of it. Keep a helicopter and airplane network for search and rescue. Should we stop fighting in foreign wars? Yes. No. Should we stop all military foreign aid? Yes. No. Should we end our membership in NATO? Yes. No. Should we get rid of the CIA? Yes. No. Should we get rid of the NSA? Yes. No. Military airports become commercial airports. Should we change our military airports near cities to commercial airports for use by the people? Yes. No. Should we take all federal government war museums, war museum stuff and war monuments and transport them to one place called War Park to leave our war heritage in one place so as not to glorify it all over the country? Yes. No. Should we create a National Peace Museum with the focus on Americans who have done great things to help other people, stupidlaws.gov? Yes. No. Government issues. Should we set up a stupid law agency where any citizen can send in their arguments about a stupid federal law that they want rescinded, which will be reviewed? Yes. No. Should the federal government stop every program of issuing awards to people because it's all patronage and pretense? Yes. No. Should we set up a federal whistleblower office to investigate government employee fraud, corruption, and waste? Whistleblower.gov. Yes. No. Should all social scientists, sociologists, and psychologists employed by the federal government to do research be terminated because they provide useless knowledge? Yes. No. Financial issues. Should we as the United States federal government end our dealings with the Federal Reserve, which is a private central bank that creates money out of nothing and lends it to us, the federal government, expecting this money back at compound interest? Yes. No. Should we cancel the federal government debt to the Federal Reserve since they created this money out of nothing? Yes. No. Should the U.S. Department of Treasury create a government-owned central bank called the United States Central Bank, which will create money out of nothing and give it to the federal government when and as required for government services and to stimulate the economy, being careful to not create so much that it causes inflation? Yes. No. Since the U.S. government will have no debt because it is creating its own money, should we abolish the Internal Revenue Service and end income tax? Yes. No. Should the federal government create its own chartered bank with branches all over the country that will offer savings accounts at 1% higher what the current rate is and loan interest rates at 1% lower than the current rate? Loans will be at the simple interest rate, not at a compounded interest rate. Yes. No. Business issues. Should we make it easier for anyone to start a business with an office and website at newbusiness.gov? Yes. No. Should we start a business reform office at businessreform.gov where people can request to get rid of federal business regulations that impede business? Yes. No. Should we create a national manufacturing department, then a town of industry on the East Coast and one on the West Coast at the site of defunct military bases where we create everything from paper cups to computers? Yes. No. Should we manufacture most of the goods we use? Should we build factories for big-ticket consumer goods, fridges, stoves, washers, dryers, TVs, computers, etc., that are currently not manufactured here? Yes. No. Should we use our customs laws to keep foreign goods out that compete with our factories? Should we stop free trade in some products to protect the manufacturing industry here? Yes. No. Should the government create a central business website like businesslibrary.gov that provides a structure of the nation's business? Yes. No. Should the government create a central import-export trading website like madeinusa.gov that provides a structure to sell goods to our own people and to other countries? Yes. No. Should we create an invention department with a website like invention.gov where people can pitch ideas for investment capital? Yes. No. Should we create a business investment department with a website like businessmoney.gov where companies can pitch ideas for investment capital? Yes. No. Should we create a modern infrastructure and always work on it? Yes. No. Should we create a union called the Amero Union between Canada, the US, Mexico, and the Caribbean nations for free trade and a free movement of people between the nations for tourism, work and college? Yes. No. Should we end laws limiting foreign ownership of real estate, companies, etc.? Yes. No. Daycare issues. National Daycare Program, daycare.gov. Should we build a daycare center at the site of every public elementary school in the country? Yes. No. Education issues. Should we create a free federal library website like freelibrary.gov with lots of online books and databases on it? Grade school issues. Should we change the grade school curriculum to more practical subjects like teach the 3 Rs then staring in grade 7, eliminate softball academic liberal arts subjects like history, geography, literature, and a few others to make space for the following subject areas: critical thinking skills, problem solving, creative thinking, money, buying and maintaining a car, real estate, home buying or rental, jobs and career, starting a business, education options after high school, computer programming. Yes. No. Should we create several free national science tech high schools which will be day schools in the big cities? Yes. No. Should we set up a website gradeschool.gov where all textbooks go online for free? Yes. No. Should we create a free online grade school program, online.school.gov from grade 7 to 12? Yes. No. Should we create a standardized test for every grade level from grade 2 to 9? If you pass the test, you can that next grade. Yes. No. Because of the teacher shortage, should the federal government create a teachers' college, teacherscollege.gov with low-cost options to get a teaching degree? Yes. No. At our federal teachers' college, should we have an accelerated program for people with a college degree in any field plus 10 years of work experience to get a teaching license in an 8-week semester? Yes. No. College issues. Should we build a national online university, onlinecollege.gov, then give everyone free tuition to a bachelor's degree? Yes. No. Should we create an office called the Foreign Student Agency, foreignstudent.gov, that will make it easy for foreigners to take online courses at our universities and make it very easy to come here and get a student visa, all for a fee of course? Yes. No. Should we, the federal government, create an information technology college at a defunct military base like USMA at West Point because this is the cutting edge of life right now? I'm assuming we will have gotten rid of our military by then. Yes. No. Should the federal government create the U.S. Public Administration College where people can go to get degrees that will help them find a job in government administration? Yes. No. Medical issues. Should we have both a public healthcare system for people who want free healthcare and a private healthcare system for people with money who don't want to deal with public healthcare wait times? Yes. No. Should we have a basic free dental program like free tooth extractions for everybody? Yes. No. Should we set up national occupational licenses for all the medical professions so if you get a medical license in any occupation in one state, it's good for the entire country? Yes. No. Should we develop the frontier technologies like genetic engineering and nanotechnology? Yes. No. Should we sell some prescription drugs over the counter like they do in Mexico? Yes. No. Should fertility services, surrogacy services, egg and sperm sales be free enterprise? Can a woman offer to carry someone else's baby through IVF for a fee on the open market? Yes. No. Should living tissue donors such as bone marrow and liver be able to sell their stuff and earn a fee? Yes. No. Can relatives of recently deceased relatives as in accidents earn a fee to sell their organs? Yes. No. Should we build the U.S. Medical College at the site of the defunct U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis assuming we have abolished the military by now? Yes. No. Should we create a foreign medical credential center at the U.S. Medical College so that foreign medical professionals can be evaluated and get an accredited medical degree? Yes. No. Should we build the U.S. Dentistry College at the site of the defunct U.S. Air Force Academy at Colorado Springs assuming we have abolished the military by now? Yes. No. Should we make eye tests free to citizens? Yes. No. A right to die law. If a person feels the quality of his or her life is greatly diminished, probably due to a medical condition and is of sound mental faculties as determined by a medical professional, does he or she have the right to be assisted to die by a doctor prescribing the appropriate medicines? Yes. No. Create medical villages, places for unregulated medical services, medicalvillage.gov. Should the government create a place on a defunct military base, one in the east, one in the west, where anyone can practice any type of medicine they want unregulated, the only rule is that you are not purposely trying to hurt people? Yes. No. Should we leave alternative holistic healers alone to sell their services and potions, letting the marketplace judge them as to whether their stuff is worthy? Yes. No. Anti-aging medicine for sale. Can steroids and other anti-aging medicines be sold over the counter to anyone over 40 without a prescription? Yes. No. Experimental, unapproved drugs okay for volunteer patients? Can a drug company offer an experimental drug to volunteers without legal liability? Yes. No. Homeless and poverty issues. The guaranteed income. Many people are against it because they say it promotes laziness. If we, the government, get our own central bank and kick out the Federal Reserve, then we're creating our money and not paying it back to bankers. Money in the economy adds to the multiplier effect. A little bit of money to poor people lowers the crime rate and mental desperation. Should we give everyone over 18 $300 a month? Yes. No. Should we create a dormitory building in every city of a population over 50,000 where anyone can go to sleep, no questions asked, kind of like a government homeless shelter? Yes. No. Should we aspire to build modest housing for everyone? Yes. No. Should we spend $5 billion a year to fund senior and long-term care housing, as in building senior communities? Yes. No. Should we spend $5 billion a year to fund disability, autistic and mentally challenged housing for people, as in building disability communities? Yes. No. Job issues. National Disability Job Network, disabilityjobs.gov. Should we create an agency called the National Disability Job Network which tries to find work for physically and mentally disabled people? I'm talking about people with intellectual disabilities, not people with so-called mental illnesses, which I believe is a massive fraud perpetrated on a brainwashed society. Yes. No. National Prisoner and Ex-Con Training and Job Network, excon.gov. Pardon. Should we fund training and job service program for convicted people both in jail and in the community, including free college and vocational tuition? Yes. No. Should people have the right to strike without their employers having the legal power to punish them? Yes. No. Should back-to-work laws be outlawed? Yes. No. Sex and marriage issues. Should sex work be legal and licensed by the government at sexwork.gov like they do in Germany, Holland, etc.? Yes. No. Marriage laws for all arrangements. A marriage contract is a business contract. I have no problem with 3 people marrying each other for marital rights. Should we pass a federal marital law giving people the right to marry several partners at the same time as long as all spouses agree to it? Yes. No. Should we allow group marriages where 3 or more people all marry each other? Yes. No. Marriage exit clause for marriages that end in under 10 years. Should we offer a simple divorce for marriages under 10 years where the players sign a form and divorce with no obligations? They resolve the splitting of assets and other issues themselves. After 10 years of marriage, this option doesn't apply anymore. Drug issues. Should we legalize most recreational drugs to decrease the crime and collect the tax money? Yes. No. Prescription drugs deregulated. Prescription drugs are way over-regulated. Many drugs are sold over the counter in Mexico. People want pain pills and anti-aging drugs. Should the federal government deregulate many non-dangerous prescription drugs so they can be sold over the counter without a prescription? Yes. No. The Head Shop Corporation, headshop.gov. Should the federal government sell legal recreational drugs and former prescription drugs over the counter at federally owned head shops? Yes. No. Ayahuasca peyote centers. Should we license drug therapy centers that offer exotic drugs and sweat lodges for vision quests, enlightenment, and to heal mental problems? The hemp industry. Should we create a hemp agency to stimulate hemp as an industrial product, hemp.gov? Yes. No. All drug convictions without violence expunged. Should we expunge and nullify all drug convictions for possession and trafficking as long as there was no violence involved? Yes. No. Crime and law issues. Domestic Violence Shelter Agency, dvsa.gov. Should the federal government fund a network of domestic violence shelters nationwide? Yes. No. Should we get rid of seat belt laws for motor vehicles? Yes. No. Should we get rid of bike and motorbike helmet laws? Yes. No. Should firearms/guns be freely sold to law-abiding citizens without mental illness or violent criminal histories? Yes. No. Many guns is a deterrent to criminals. Should anyone without a criminal record or mental illness history be able to buy a federal concealed weapon permit for $50 a year? Yes. No. Should we give police the power to make plea bargains with criminals, thus bypassing court altogether? Yes. No. The Internet Crime Agency, ICA.gov. Should we set up a federal agency called the Internet Crime Agency that investigates any and all online crimes? Yes. No. Should we create a federal consumer fraud agency, consumerfraud.gov? Yes. No. Automatic pardon, criminal records wiped clean. Should a criminal record be wiped clean and made invisible to the public if a criminal stays clean for 5 years except for sex offenders and violent crimes? Should the federal government fund a national sex offender registry at sexoffenders.gov? Yes. No. National Crime Hotline, nch.gov, 866 report crime. Should the federal government fund a national crime hotline where people can phone in tips, send an email or post them up in a forum? Yes. No. Kidney donation for prisoner release. Should we pass a law where a prisoner not convicted of a violent or sexual crime gets out of jail for donating a kidney? Yes. No. Should violent criminals over 55 who have served 10 years get out of jail for donating an organ? Yes. No. New speed limit laws. Should the highway speed limit increase to 80 miles per hour? Should the city speed limit increase to 40 miles per hour? Yes. No. Open liquor on the street. Can people drink alcohol openly on a public street? Yes. No. Smoking in private buildings. Should a building owner or renter decide whether to allow smoking in his or her premises, such as a bar or restaurant owner? Yes. No. The Youthful Offender Act. Should we lower the age of criminal adult accountability to 15? If you commit a crime and you're 15 or older, you go through the adult court system. Yes. No. Theft of a motor vehicle. Should there be a mandatory minimum 36-month, 3-year, prison sentence for a conviction on the theft of any motor vehicle, including a motorcycle from a stranger, as opposed to borrowing a car from somebody you know? Yes. No. Transportation issues. Should we build a high-speed train across the country? Yes. No. Should we create a department of new roads to build new roads through unoccupied land to open it up? Yes. No. Should we build a new 4-lane highway across the country? Yes. No. Animal issues. Should animal cruelty convictions have jail sentence guidelines of up to 20 years? Yes. No. Should it be illegal to leave any animal chained up for longer than 8 hours a day? Yes. No. Should animal neglect be a federal crime punishable by jail time? Neglect means the animal is chained up or locked up, ignored, not fed, not given water, left to live in its own feces and or not given loving attention. Yes. No. Should there be a federal law limiting the leashing of dogs in public only to dogs that are aggressive or overly exuberant? This would eliminate all civic leash laws everywhere. Leash laws will be limited to aggressive and excitable dogs only. Yes. No. Animal rights in public buildings. Should dogs and cats be allowed on a leash in all buildings open to the public, including food stores? Yes. No. Laws banning certain dogs. If you watch the TV show Pit Bulls and Parolees, you realize the breed does not make a dog vicious. How it is raised does. Should there be a federal law nullifying laws that ban certain breeds of dogs from living somewhere, like the Pit Bull breed? Yes. No. Science/research issues. Free-rein medical scientific research. The government must not interfere except where animals are used. We don't want unethical research on animals, but should we, the government, stay out of regulating any other type of research? The government will only have one law for research. Do it with good intentions, not for evil purposes. Yes. No. Can people do stem cell research? Yes. No. Some people are against genetic engineering for all kinds of reasons. Should the government stay out of regulating genetic engineering research? Yes. No. Should the government create a genetic science agency, genetics.gov, and a genetic science college and give them $25 billion for research and education? Yes. No. Should the government fund anti-aging genetic research? Yes. No. Genetic engineering research, make babies better. Should the government fund research to improve the human being such that human babies are less evil and aggressive than they are now? Yes. No. Should the federal government fund transhumanism, genetic engineering, and nanotechnology and biotechnology to create a supercharged, joyful human being? Yes. No. Nanotechnology is manufacturing at the molecular level with very small machines. Think of it as little live beasties that can do things they're programmed to do. Should the government fund nanotechnology research? Should the federal government fund an eye research lab to create a biological or bionic eye and cure blindness? Yes. No. Should the government fund a free energy lab at freeenergy.gov where we take people's ideas for free energy machines and see if they work? Yes. No. Is NASA or our space agency spending a waste of money while we have real practical problems right now? Yes. No. Food issues. Should people selling food as individuals trying to make some money be free of health regulations? Yes. No. Should the federal government designate farmers' markets as government inspection-free zones? Anybody can sell food product without inspection including meat? Yes. No. Should the federal government subsidize a website farmersmarkets.gov which lists farmers' markets by state? Yes. No. Should we give unused federal land as a free lease to community gardening groups who want to farm it for as long as they farm it? Laws against hens in cities nullified. Should we nullify laws against chickens in cities? Border issues. Lay off border inspections for returning Americans. Presuming we legalize drugs, most people do not like to be hassled at the border. Should we pass a law stopping border guards from inspecting the bodies and luggage of Americans returning home after a foreign trip? Yes. No. Immediate Illegal Alien Removal Act. Right now, if Homeland Security catches an illegal alien, that person supposedly has the right to go to an American immigration court to plead their case. They broke into our country. It's a criminal act. Should the federal government fingerprint and book illegal aliens then immediately deport them the first time, keep them in jail for 60 days the second time and keep them in jail for a year the third time they get caught breaking into the country? Yes. No. Should we eliminate the refugee and political asylum programs because there are enough people here already plus we got enough homeless, poor people who need help? Yes. No. Foreign language issues. There is one major language, English. Should we, the federal government, end all foreign language training for government employees? Yes. No. Should we outlaw all government signs in any language other than English? Yes. No. Should we outlaw all private business signs in any language other than English? Yes. No. Should we outlaw all government correspondence in any language other than English, meaning we don't put our business in any language other than English? Yes. No. Other issues. Should we end all foreign aid until our homeless rate is at 0%? Yes. No. Should we get rid of the Census/Statistics Department because it seems useless? We don't need statistics to figure out what's going on. Yes. No. A federal adoption agency. Should the federal government create a federal adoption agency to centralize this messy process? Private adoptions for a fee. Right now, technically, the lawyers, agencies and consultants get fees but a woman cannot sell her baby for money. Should people have the right to sell their babies and children in legal adoption? Should the government give every adult 18 and over $200 of free money every month? Yes. No. Should we get rid of boat licenses for boats under 10 meters long? Yes. No. Should recreational fishing licenses be eliminated because they're a money grab? Yes. No. Should we create a city in a national park called Fun City out of scratch like they created Cancun geared for tourism? Yes. No. Should we set up a national gaming agency that takes bets on sports? Yes. No. Poker industry. Should we set up a federal poker agency for internet poker and to license poker bars? Yes. No. The National Park Service Student Summer Trail Building Program. Should the government hire 500 students every summer to create hiking roads in the national parks? Yes. No. Liquor in grocery stores. There are places where liquor is sold in special liquor stores only. Should the federal government pass a law enabling liquor to be sold as a common grocery item in any food store? Yes. No. All UFO files made public, ufo.gov. Should the government make all UFO material including downed spacecraft and dead extraterrestrials public? If any government employee refuses to give them up, he or she will be charged for disobeying a lawful order. Yes. No. Banking fees. Should all banks offer a no-fee savings and checking account without a minimum balance? Yes. No. Should banks provide totally free unlimited ATM use at their bank ATMs? Yes. No.